Right now, millions and millions of Americans are beginning to panic because they are now being warned that their job isn't 100% safe. This has a lot of people concerned, especially as we dip into the fourth quarter. Holiday shopping is just around the corner. Thanksgiving next month, Christmas in a little over 2 months. And people are wondering, how are we going to pay for gifts? How are we going to pay for our home? How are we going to pay for electricity? Keep our car payment? How are we going to do all those things? Well, that's actually going to get tougher as we move forward. Today, we're going to break down what's going on, how companies are still laying off more employees, but how more layoffs will only cause more layoffs. It's a huge concern. But look at this story from today. It says, China retaliates against U.S. port fees with new charges on American ships. What is going on here, and how is this going to impact us here in the United States? Well, let's look into it. Look at this right here. It says, China on Friday, which is today, announced starting on October 14th, so in just 4 days, the country will start charging U.S. ships for docking at Chinese ports, a direct response to Washington for imposing fees on Chinese vessels arriving at U.S. ports, set to take effect on the same day. So, what the United States is going to do, we are going to charge Chinese boats to dock at our ports. Guess what's going to happen there? It means we are going to have to pay a little bit more because guess what the Chinese shipping companies are going to do? They're going to push that responsibility, that additional fee, onto us, onto the consumer. So that's exactly what China is going to do with U.S. ships docking at their ports. They're going to charge them a little bit, which means the Chinese people are going to have to pay a little bit more for their products as well that are coming in from the United States. And guess what could happen? We could actually see less products consumed by the Chinese people that are coming from the United States. That could mean more layoffs. Let's keep reading this though. It says right here, the U.S. fees seriously violate international trading principles and seriously damages China-U.S. maritime trade. This is the Chinese Ministry of Transport said in an announcement. It says China will charge 400 yuan, or $56 per net ton for the U.S. vessels, essentially the same as the $50 per ton the U.S. is imposing on Chinese ships. Beijing also matched the U.S. with plans to increase the fees over time through April 17th, 2028, with the same effective dates. Yeah. You don't think this is going to hurt us? It will. This is going to impact us. And it's not going to be where we get some little trinket from China and it's going to go from $10 to $25. It's not going to increase that much. But when we are imposing a $50 fee per net ton, it is going to add up. Okay? This is going to cost us a little bit more. Now, I don't know exactly how much because this is still yet to go into effect. It goes into effect next week. But once it does, we're going to get some updates on it. Look at this. It says in short term, this will result in an increase in costs for U.S. consumers, a decrease in profits for shippers, and a small decline in demand for exports to the U.S. in certain categories. It says in the longer term, he said, there could be more demand for non-Chinese ships, but he didn't expect an increase in demand for U.S.-made ships due to their high costs and low shipbuilding capabilities or capacity. Okay. It says the U.S. only accounts for 0.1% of global shipbuilding versus 53.3% for China, according to the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Okay. So, again, this is going to cause additional layoffs. Layoffs are coming. Okay. Like I said, when we see more layoffs, they are only going to cause additional layoffs. Look at this, though. You think it just stops there? Look at this. It says Kaiser Permanente cuts hundreds of jobs across California as historic strike nears. I want to read a little bit of this to you as well. It says right here, Kaiser Permanente has announced another round of layoffs affecting hundreds of employees across California, deepening tensions with workers as thousands prepare to strike next week. It says according to state filings, the nonprofit healthcare provider will cut more than 200 positions across 15 hospitals and clinics. The layoffs took effect September 17th and were disclosed in WARN notices filed Monday with the California Employment Development Department. It says affected facilities include major sites in Oakland, Pleasanton, San Leandro, Pasadena, and Redwood City, as well as smaller locations in Los Angeles, Riverside, and San Diego counties. Okay, so we are going to see additional layoffs there, but this strike that's going to come next week, who knows what that's going to lead to? We'll see what happens next week when that goes down. Here's something else that a lot of people don't realize, and I talked about this a couple weeks ago as well. It says nearly 1,000 Starbucks workers in Seattle and Kent are to be laid off. That's just in Seattle and Kent. And I want to show you this as well. This is the WARN notice here in Washington State. You can see it. Okay, this is Starbucks right here. The two locations, Seattle and Kent. The layoff start date is going to be December 5th, and they're going to lay off 974 people. It's going to be a permanent layoff. You can see right here, Simply IOA LLC, going to lay off one person due to a closure. Stamilt Ag Services, they're going to lay off 1,561. That's going to be a permanent. Again, Starbucks in various locations around the state, 338. Oracle America, Manson Growers Orchard Services, 257. Farmers, New World Life Insurance Company, they're going to lay off 65. Agri Northwest, 62. BM, and you can kind of see right here, Agrimax, 1,300. Kershaw Farm Labor Management, 539. I believe, Gilbert Orchards, 599. I think what a lot of this is, these are seasonal workers that are losing their jobs. Again, they're seasonal workers. They come on, they work the cherry season, they work apples, I believe, or pears or something like that. And then a lot of them go back down to California, go back down to Mexico. I believe that's what's happening there with the orchard services. So we'll see what happens. But that's what's interesting, okay? This one. 1,000 Starbucks workers in Seattle and Kent. And I said this before, that Starbucks was closing. They're closing many locations. Okay, I believe they're closing like 200 locations or something like that. And what's happening though is all those locations, they have several employees, probably dozens of employees at every single location. They can't just move them to a different Starbucks location. They don't need that many employees, so they're laying off these employees, which will be permanent. They're not being relocated. So again, these layoffs are only going to compound, because guess what happens? Guess what happens when the Starbucks employee loses his job or her job? Now, and even that Starbucks isn't going to go and get the cleaning services, isn't going to go and get the certain products it needs. So now that Starbucks is selling less drinks, or theoretically they're likely going to sell less drinks, the problem is they're not going to order all the stuff that they need. The different syrups, or I don't drink coffee, but you can probably get the idea, right? They don't need as many muffins. They don't need all that stuff, as many cups, right? And so then their layoffs lead to additional layoffs. Look at this one as well, though. This is a concern from many Americans, is that the White House wants to lay off people. It says White House says no shutdown-related layoffs yet, but warns they could come. The expectation is that the Trump administration is looking at really hundreds of thousands of people that they can let go. Just lay them off, where they aren't going to get paid. They just will not get paid. Okay? It's not going to be a government furlough. They're going to be let go, because the federal government, as of right now, says they cannot afford to pay all these people to just sit at home. So we'll see what happens there. But look at this. It says mid-year layoffs layoff notices go out at Portland area school districts as negotiations over cutting school days continues. We are about to see a major shift, and it's not just for teachers. Teachers are going to see, they are going to be asked to do certain things they don't want to do. There's a good chance people will be pushing back, potentially laid off, and or they will simply quit. Another one is doctors and nurses. There's a massive shift going on right now that many of these hospitals and clinics, they're not profitable because they're paying these huge amounts for some of these doctors and nurses. And now they're trying to roll back the amount that they're paying. Almost like the 2021, 2022 numbers. So go back 2 to 3 years and pretty much eliminate all these raises that these people received. So in the very near future, again, we're going to see this massive shift. Some say it's going to happen in 2025. I don't think it's going to happen in 2025. I think we get through the rest of this year, and then 2026, I think a lot of these companies decide they need to restructure. They need to kind of pivot and adjust their plan. And that's where we see additional layoffs. But we will likely see people quit because they are being pushed or asked too much for certain things. So we'll see what happens, but that is what we know as of today. So again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.